Our story today takes place in a time of growth and change, when the prophet Elisha, a man through whom God performed incredible miracles, was guiding a devoted community. This isn't a story about kings or great battles, but about a humble group with an important mission. The sons of the prophets were expanding, a community of believers dedicated to learning, teaching, and living faithfully. As their numbers grew, so did their need for space. They came to Elisha, their leader and spiritual guide, with a simple yet collective plan to build a larger meeting place near the Jordan River.
The company of the prophets said to Elisha, "Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, where each of us can get a pole. And let us build a place there for us to meet."
They didn't act on their own. Instead, they sought Elisha's approval and involvement, symbolizing their trust in God's guidance through him. Together, they embarked on this meaningful task.
And he said, "Go." Then one of them said, "Won't you please come with your servants?" "I will," Elisha replied. And he went with them. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down trees.
This serene beginning sets the stage for an extraordinary moment, reminding us that even the smallest endeavors can reflect God's care. The work was progressing smoothly. Each of the sons of the prophets worked diligently, cutting trees and shaping wood for their new meeting place. The sound of axes echoed through the air, blending with the gentle flow of the Jordan River. But then something unexpected happened. One man's grip on his axe faltered. The heavy iron axe head slipped from its handle, hurtling into the river.
As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water. "Oh no, my lord," he cried out. "It was borrowed."
The man stared helplessly at the rippling water. The axe had sunk out of sight, lost to the depths of the Jordan. He panicked, not because the axe was his prized possession, but because it wasn't his. In ancient times, iron tools were rare and valuable, far beyond what most people could afford. Borrowing an axe was not just practical, it was an act of trust between neighbors or friends. Imagine the weight of responsibility this man felt. Losing a borrowed tool wasn't just inconvenient, it was dishonorable. In the close-knit community of the prophets, resources were shared out of necessity. Each tool, each resource, represented the unity and mutual dependence of this group. Losing the axe would have been more than a setback. It could have jeopardized their shared trust and mission. This moment of distress, while seemingly small, carried deep emotional and cultural significance. The worker knew he needed help. He turned to Elisha, trusting in God's servant to intervene. What could be done? The axe was gone, lost and irretrievable by human effort. But this was no ordinary situation, and Elisha was no ordinary man. Elisha doesn't chastise the man or panic. He doesn't question how the axe fell or why it happened. Instead, he remains steady, responding with quiet confidence. Elisha's calm reaction shows his reliance on God's power, not his own. For Elisha, even in this seemingly impossible situation, there was no need for alarm. Elisha approaches the man with a question. Where did it fall? He understands the importance of precise action, asking for the exact location where the axe head disappeared. The man points toward the spot, and Elisha begins his next step with focused determination. Elisha takes the stick he has cut and throws it into the water at the pointed spot. Ripples form on the surface, spreading outward in gentle waves. The water is still again for a moment, but then something extraordinary happens. Slowly, the heavy iron axe head rises to the surface, defying all natural laws. It floats, glinting in the sunlight.
The man of God asked, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it there, and made the iron float.
This miracle wasn't about grandeur. It wasn't about armies or thrones. It was a simple, immediate need, yet God chose to intervene. This story shows us something profound. God's care extends to even the smallest concerns of His people. What could have been dismissed as insignificant was instead met with divine attention and provision. Elisha instructs the man to take action, saying, "Lift it out." The worker reaches down, grasping the floating axe head with trembling hands. His relief and gratitude are unmistakable.
"Lift it out," he said. Then the man reached out his hand and took it.
This story reminds us that God is not distant. He is present in all situations, big and small. The floating axe head may seem like a minor event in the grand narrative of the Bible, but it speaks volumes about God's nature, His attentiveness, His power, and His willingness to meet us where we are. Why would God intervene to recover a borrowed tool? It's a question that might cross your mind as you hear this story. After all, this wasn't about saving a life, stopping a war, or restoring a kingdom. Yet, it shows us something profound. God's concern isn't limited to grand gestures. He cares about the small and personal things too. This moment demonstrates that God is intimately aware of both our physical and emotional needs. The worker's distress wasn't just about losing an axe, it was about the responsibility and trust tied to that borrowed tool. Through Elisha, God not only recovered the tool but also restored peace to the man's heart. Every part of our lives is cared for by God, as this narrative tells us. Whether it's a major crisis or a seemingly minor concern, He is present and attentive. His power is not reserved for the extraordinary. It meets us in the everyday, reminding us that nothing is too small for Him. Think about it. A simple borrowed axe head became the focus of the divine intervention. This miracle teaches us to have faith, even in the little things. It invites us to rely on God not just for the monumental, but for the mundane moments as well. In doing so, we learn to see His presence everywhere, in every answered prayer, every provision, and every unexpected help. All the little things add up to show how much God cares, as the tale of the floating axe head shows. From life's great crises to the seemingly trivial, He is always there, offering guidance, provision, and peace. The story of the floating axe head is more than just a miraculous event. It's an invitation to trust God in every circumstance, big or small. It reminds us that no problem is too trivial for His care, and no moment is too insignificant to call on Him. How often have we faced situations that seemed minor to others but deeply important to us? Maybe it was finding a lost item at just the right time, or receiving help when you didn't even ask for it. These moments, though small, carry the unmistakable mark of God's provision. Think about the times in your life when you've experienced these small miracles. Perhaps it was a kind word on a hard day, or an unexpected blessing that arrived just when you needed it. These moments are reminders of God's constant presence and care.
Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you.
What the floating axe head story shows us is that God's love permeates all aspects of life, not only the grand and spectacular. Call on Him in all things, trust Him with your worries, and know that He is always near. This small miracle from 2 Kings reminds us that no need is too small for God. His love reaches into the details of our lives, turning even the simplest moments into reflections of His care. Whether it's recovering a borrowed axe head or finding peace in a chaotic moment, His presence is constant and reassuring. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share a moment when God showed His care in your life, big or small, in the comments below. And if this story inspired you, check out our other videos for more stories of God's everyday miracles.